Hi, subscribers. Hi, Queen of the Universe Parish. Hi, any of our friends that are watching. I just wanted to hop on here and sneak into Christina's office before she started work, just to share how grateful I am for everyone that's taken the time to log in to participate in the Mass from home. It's been really a wonderful experience to see the numbers and to also participate in the process. It's something that obviously none of us really looked forward to or ever would expect. But this has really turned out better than I would have expected. So I did want to just reach out and thank Queen's staff and Father John, especially David, Sue, Nicole, Mike Joyce, who've really been working hard to kind of put all this together. Um, with that being said, I read an article recently and I thought it was really interesting that we should make sure that we're not watching the Mass. And I'm sure we've all become purveyors of it. We've probably snuck on and watched, Cabrini's or St. Mike's, or we've watched downtown the cathedral, or maybe a national broadcast, or one of these priests who's been doing their masses from their own private chapel, like Father Bach, Father Mike Schmitz. It's wonderful, and I think it's great to be able to take all that in and experience maybe hearing a Mass said that you couldn't hear in regular life, this non-virtual life. But what we want to be careful of is to remember that we're entering into the Mass, right? We don't really go to Mass. Masses aren't individual things. There's only one Mass, and that happens in heaven. It happens outside of time. During the part of the Mass where we say we want to lift up our hearts, we lift them up to the Lord. We're entering into something heavenly. We're entering into something metaphysical, something beyond what we can understand. But through grace and through Christ's presence, we enter into those things, especially during this most important time of the Triduum. We're going to notice that we really are emphasizing the fact that we are there with Him at the Last Supper. We are there with Him on Calvary. We are there at the tomb, rejoicing with His resurrection. All of those things are happening while we're experiencing the Mass. And I think that's important to think of us as experiencing it, as participating in it. We are not passive watchers, even if we're sitting at home. So, how do we remind ourselves of that? What do we do? First of all, participate. You're going to find there's a link under the video for the live stream. David, for every single Mass, has provided a framework and a worship guide that goes along with it. So the worship guide in itself will give you the lyrics to the songs. It will give you the responses. Some of our longer prayers will be in there, the readings, and where to find them will all be located there. I think Nicole's also has put a link that's going to send you directly to the readings for the day on the United States Catholic Conference of Bishops, Conference of Catholic Bishops, something like that. But that will be available to you, so you have the ability to participate. Do you think it feels weird to kneel in your house? Yes, but you should do it anyway. When it's time to stand during the Our Father, stand and say it out loud, proudly. When it's time to say the profession of faith, stand up and profess your faith proudly. Some of those other things, take the distractions out of the room. Don't have something else on. Don't be looking at your phone, unless it's to look at the the liturgy assistant packet that David put together. Um, Take those distractions out. This shouldn't be the time to have your morning coffee. If the kids aren't participating or they're too little, get them out of the room. What Christina did for our kids, she dressed them up. She put them in their Sunday clothes and they watched Daddy sing on their TV, which I'm sure was surreal. But it was a neat occasion for them, and it made it special, right? They had they got to pick which tie they wanted to wear, and none of them matched, but it was adorable, and they were home, so who cares? But I got home. It was great to come home after cantering and see them sitting there in their clothes. They're like, Dad, we saw you on TV. Um, but that's part of it. Maybe it could be for you lighting a candle, burning incense, taking time beforehand to mentally and spiritually place yourself in the presence of God. And what I mean by that is to allow yourself um, to have that quiet time, to center yourself, to find a place where you can fully spiritually and mentally participate in the Mass. I know we can't physically participate. And I know that's a struggle for a lot of people. It is hard to not be with your neighbors. It is hard to not physically receive the Eucharist. But again, we're coming into a time where the disciples knew what it was to lose Jesus. They knew what it felt like to be without him, to see him leave their presence, to see him crucified on a cross. So maybe that's our lesson for this Triduum, for this Holy Week, for this Easter season, is to appreciate Christ, is to really understand that he can go away. We've lost some things that we took for granted, and it's a powerful message, and we can pray through that. And I think it's wonderful that we are taking our own responsibility for that. Some other practical things, like I said, singing along, doing the responses, doing the Catholic sit, stand, kneel. Um, the one thing too that I find that, I'll tell you a secret. Christina and I share the sign of peace. I know we're not allowed, but I think if we were going to be contaminated by each other, it would have already happened. So that's a secret, that if you're in your own home, you can share the sign of peace. We don't have to take that out of the mass. The other thing is we normally put money in the basket. I'm not saying you have to make a donation. What I am saying is to be aware that the charities that you normally support, that organizations that usually rely on you financially, still do. And I think I know I have, we may have forgotten about them over the last month. And we really are coming up on 4 weeks. It's crazy how long this has been and how long it feels. Um, but to remember that if it is donating to the parish, if it's donating to Mary's Cupboard or to Legacy of Life, anything that you normally support, please try to remember them if you can. I know some of us are going through a financial burden, or work's dried up, or you're a pay per hour person. That's fine. Do what you can, or don't do what you can't. But if you do have it within your means, don't forget about those things. I think it's important, especially as we wrap up Lent. Almsgiving is a huge part of what we do. Not only prayer and sacrifice, but giving is the sort of the third pillar, the third stool leg of our Lenten experience. So keep that in mind also. Um, so don't think of yourself as home watching. See yourself as a participant. The Mass exists everywhere, outside of time, outside of space, outside of culture. It is one of those things that we have access to at all times. God's grace. Just to remind everybody, the church is still open um, from noon to 5. So you can, as long as you're, observing social distancing, don't be getting up in anybody's breathing space. But the church is available for you, just to be in the Lord's presence. Again, we can't do that right now at the sacrifice of the Mass. We can't do that in order to receive the Eucharist, but we certainly can still avail ourselves of the sacrament of reconciliation. We can still bring come to Mass anytime, or come into the church anytime we want, just to be in front of the tabernacle, to know God's physical presence is there in front of us. I just thought of one last thing, and it slipped right out of my head. But with that being said, I think that we are all doing a wonderful job. The feedback has been great. I wanted to share with you guys, we have made some upgrades. I think you'll enjoy them. We've got a more movable camera. David has added some wonderful effects, just to be able to sort of highlight and to elevate that participation experience, to let you kind of be aware of what's happening, what's going on. I think the reflection prayer is one of the things we'll do, so you can offer a spiritual communion. So we're constantly trying to improve it. We're working on it. Mike Joyce's homilies or homiletics have been absolutely phenomenal. So I hope you've been enjoying them. If you haven't seen them yet, look down under this video and start clicking around. He's really, really insightful stuff. I'm so excited for him to become a deacon because he's got so much to share. Otherwise, I really just wanted to remind everybody just to stay prayerful, stay hopeful, and know that the sacrifice that you're making by staying home is really making a difference. For one, it's protecting our priests. I just read an article about from a Catholic microbiologist saying, like, the most important thing right now is to not try to push and have our way, that we need to wait for the Lord, that most of our priests, luckily our pastor is relatively young, but a lot of churches have very aged priests. They have elderly priests, and it's not a good situation for them to be exposed to COVID-19. I have a medical background myself, and I've just seen those things that people want to do and take risks with, and it just doesn't make sense to me. So please be safe. Only go out of your house when you have to. I know you've heard this from people more famous than me a million times, but it is so important to just keep hanging in there, and hopefully the more we stay home, the more we take advantage of these online situations, the safer we'll be, the quicker this will pass. So God bless everyone. Please leave any comments if you have any questions of anything else you'd like me to extrapolate on, or maybe a topic you want me to talk about. Feel free to leave it in the comments. Until then, I will see you. Well, hopefully you will see me tonight at Holy Thursday Mass.